Well, thank you so much for joining us for our weekly webinar here at HFA. I'm Mark Schumacher, Executive Vice President. We're glad to have you along. I know that for most of you that have still been dealing with reopening and kicking business back up to hopefully normal levels, this is maybe the 1 hour where you can sit back and just sponge a little bit and get some best practices on the subject of the week. And this week we've got a great one. We're really focusing this week specifically on warehouse and delivery. Two areas that have been such a huge focus for the industry ever since the huge influx of e-com, but now with all of the safety and health concerns, it's become even more of a focus and more of a challenge. So I want to thank you for that. Before I introduce my guests, I want to let you know that, of course, this is being recorded, so it will be available later today on myhfa.org/COVID-19. That is the resource page that has become the industry standard. It is where you can find up-to-date information on everything related to this crisis, as well as webinars like this. Please share them, use them. That's what it's here for. I also want to mention to you, by the way, we do have a handout that's available today. You're seeing on the right side of your screen there, which is home furnishings delivery companies, and it's a very good white paper that would be very helpful as part of this process. And I want to also mention that if you want to send some questions in, please do. You have that ability on the right side of your screen as well. But let me introduce who we have with you here. We have three gentlemen who can certainly bring some amazing expertise to this conversation. We have Carl Nyberg. Carl is the Chief Operating Officer for Home Furniture up in the Minneapolis area and surrounding states. If you've not been up to that part of the world, an incredibly impressive operation, and one that certainly has had many challenges through this pandemic. Also joining us is Charlie Workman. He wears two hats. One, he's president of Riverstone Logistics, which is a company that's a warehouse and delivery company that also supports an entity that he's also connected very closely to, and that's Broad River Retail. That is an Ashley Home Store franchisee based in the Charlotte area, and they have a number of stores as well. And also we have Riaz Hussein here, who's with a brand new company. He's the founder. They launched it at the beginning of this year. It's called Profit Chain, which is a supply chain logistics company. To give you a little bit on Riaz, he was a VP of logistics for Macy's, so he's got a lot of expertise in this space. So first of all, guys, thank you so much for joining us. I appreciate this. Let's do this, and I'm going to go around the room here, if you will. We can call this our room, and just ask this question off the bat, and get your individual answers for this. And we'll start out, Carl, with you. Give us the one or two biggest challenges from the warehouse delivery side of the operation there that you have seen thanks to COVID-19.
Yeah, I think currently it's just fighting the urge that everybody wants things to go back to normal when in fact they're still not normal, and we have to keep all the safety procedures in place, social distancing and things like that. Initially it was all about getting employee confidence that we had a good operating plan, we had a way to keep them safe, and that we were concerned about them. So, I think employees are always important, but I think in this environment that they just have to know that, we're not just here trying to do business, but that we're, concerned about them, and we're concerned about customers, and that we've got, a good operating plan in mind. And I think that's important for all businesses that are on the retail side.
And Carl, when you say fighting the urge to go back to normal, you're talking about your team, correct?
Yeah, I'm just saying society in general. I don't know, all of our states have different rules now, but, most states are opening up. Some restaurants and bars are opening, and, our operation, we're masked up in the showrooms. We're masked up in the warehouses, and in the warehouses now that it's getting warm out, that's not entirely fun. And so you just have to rethink how you do things, and you may need a few more breaks, but everybody would love to take the masks off because it's more comfortable. So that's what I mean, fight the urge. People want their lives to be exactly the way they were. They want how we operate to be exactly the way it was. And right now it can't. So we just got to do things a little differently.
Yeah, it's a very human thing, no doubt about it. Charlie, what about you and Riverstone Logistics, et cetera? What would you say are the one or two biggest challenges that you have seen during this pandemic?
Yeah, it's a great question. I'd say initially it was adapting to a whole host of new behaviors, and I think we all experienced this. We had to reinvent ourselves very quickly, and communication is everything, and communication with our delivery teams, communication with our employees, communication with our customers was part of it. The other part of the communication was communicating with our local municipalities, local government, our community, and really fighting to stay open, fighting to keep livelihoods afloat while caring for our people and keep putting their safety at the forefront. So that host of new behaviors that came with that. And Carl just mentioned it, but I mean, keeping a mask on and above both your mouth and your nose, it seems to be just a very human, difficult thing to keep people doing inside our distribution centers, inside our customers' homes, and in public spaces. But add to that we also would require latex gloves and shoe covers for delivery teams. Add to that we have a temperature check station at our distribution centers that has to run a certain way to actually be effective. And then we've got protocol for what happens when something goes a little sideways or a concern pops up. So the whole element of adapting to new processes and a new culture in the midst very quickly in the midst of a pandemic, which is, we've it's obviously been extremely challenging. And then currently, I would agree completely with Carl, coming out of shutdown mode, still very much in pandemic mode, has seen a whole host of new concerns, namely both customer behaviors and employee delivery contractor behaviors. That what we see are people are letting down their guards, and they're not doing so based on scientific reasoning or logic. They're doing so because of either fatigue, COVID fatigue, or just really taking the reopening of the country as some sort of license to be able to relax, let down their guard, and that has been a significant challenge to keep the organization focused and keep safety at paramount and in everybody's face, literally.
Well, one thing I want to mention, and I mean, this may sound obvious, but I'm really good at pointing out the obvious. We know that retailers across the country in the home furnishing space are really looking, and we at HFA are advocating for them at every level for some sort of liability protection because it's just such a critical piece. And so we're fighting that battle. And perhaps nowhere is it more critical than this subject matter the three of you are talking about today, because of the fact that you can control things a little bit better on a showroom floor as people come in, but when you've got your teams going out into the fray, kind of a different ball game, which we'll talk about that a little bit more in a minute. But I think those are great points, guys. Riaz, what about you? What are some of the couple of things that for your clients, et cetera, that you're seeing as the biggest challenges?
So certainly what Charlie and Carl pointed out were excellent points in that you've got a couple of different things going on with employees. One is making them feel safe, that the employer is observing all the CDC standard practices and really making sure that they're safe at work. But then you've got sort of the opposite problem where you've got a population that are starting to feel too comfortable, like the points made about the mask wearing, those kind of things, where people almost feel like everything is okay and they want to return to that sense of normalcy. So certainly you have a lot of that going on. And you add to that what has been surprising in some areas, in that some of the retailers we've worked with have seen an incredible increase in their sales. To some of the retailers that we work with are seeing sales that are above comp store sales from prior year. So now you have this added challenge of you have some employees that are just not comfortable coming back to work yet. You have drivers that are in the same situation, but you actually have more deliveries that you're trying to make and more product you're trying to move through your distribution center. So how do you balance those two things and make employees feel comfortable at the same time? So certainly that's something that we're seeing in the industry that's become quite a challenge.
And let me toss this out to the three of you, just kind of an open question. Are you all at this point having curbside threshold and in-home, or are there any restrictions that you're having in your individual companies as to any of those three?
Actually, in the industry, it's a combination. Different retailers have different models, but most are started out with curbside during the closure when they were still delivering. But now that they're opening up, it's a combination of threshold and white glove. And what I'm seeing out there is about 30 to 40% threshold and the balance with white glove.
Okay, Charlie?
Yeah, we're seeing a little bit different percentages. We never offered curbside for our clients, but porch delivery would have been, or drop-off delivery on the porch would have been our solution, or like solution. And we would have seen between maybe 15%, tops 20% take on that. Threshold delivery was the other service offering, so not actually going to the room of choice. But at least in the southern states and some of the other states we operate in, when we've been operating, we've been primarily going into the home and delivering to the room of choice.
Okay, Carl?
Yeah, for us, that we operate in 5 different states, so we had different rules. And as you've got people listening all over the country, everybody has different rules. Ours has now reverted back to what we would consider normal. We're about 80% white glove, delivered to the room, deluxe it up, all of that, and 20% is garage drop. We've managed that now that we've redesigned the software, so it's no touch. We put it in the garage for the customer. They don't have to sign the forms anymore. We email them receipts. And as was spoken before, you just now it's gloves on, masks on in the home, and that during the initial phase down, we shut down all white glove delivery and only did the garage drop service, as well as just customer pickups at our main distribution center. We cut down all pickups at showrooms at that time. And so it's just been a kind of a rolling phase in of operations as states allowed different activities or we defined processes we were comfortable with that we were, and then just getting buy-in from the employees along the way. So yeah, it's I'd say we're, other than the enhanced safety procedures and cleaning and all of those type of things everybody's doing and making sure people are sticking with that, we're pretty much back to normal from how customers get product from us today.
What a change this is, because before this crisis occurred, there was so much, and still is, there's so much focus on final mile, realizing that last contact with the customer is so critical, because if you screw it up, then you can poison the whole mix. So much of that, of how important that is. That's where, the white glove, everything you guys are talking about, that's why that's so important. Now you're talking about, over the last few months, things like, garage drop, porch drop, threshold. These are not the things I would imagine that any of the three of you would have ever wanted in your arsenal in a normal environment, right? You would want that customer to be able to just really kind of wrap this up with a bow. Charlie, I'll start with you. Is there a part of this that everybody listening needs to know about when it comes to a little bit of a change of expectations in that part of it, and even liability aspects of dropping and the sign off? This has really changed rather dramatically the end of the sale that's been seen as so important.
Yeah, no, I think it's a great point. And there's no doubt that the customer's expectations have changed. Whether it's a temporary change or a sustainable change, we'll find out. But the customer always does seem to want options, and those options conform to their level of comfort. And in this case, comfort with having 2 men they don't know in their home making a delivery. And so I think and would suspect that to some extent, these expectations are going to change, to the extent that we're going to need to continue to have these options in our arsenal. We're going to need to continue to offer drop-off delivery, to deliver to her porch, to deliver to her garage. I think from a liability perspective, it's well thought that, what happens when what does that porch delivery look like? What does that curbside delivery look like? Are you requiring customer interaction at that point in time? Are you able to do away with the customer interaction and create that almost, DoorDash experience where we're leaving it and notifying her and leaving without coming face to face with her? Our organization isn't there yet. So even in a porch delivery scenario, a garage delivery scenario, which we are doing and executing on, we're still requiring customer interaction to the extent that we still require a customer signature, and ensure that we're not opening up that liability can of worms quite yet in terms of I didn't receive it or I did receive it. So we are a little cautious about that, and but duly noted, it is something that customers have asked about. We have customers that have refused to come to the door and engage with delivery teams with a drop-off expectation, and it does create a new wrinkle that we probably will have to address.
Now, Carl, you said that you guys have don't require that interaction directly, but let me ask you, but how do you manage that, and also how do you manage if you drop it in the garage, is part of the sign off the fact that then it is got to be completely the customer's responsibility from that standpoint? How have you made sure that that's clear to people?
Yeah, what we've done is we've gone to tablet usage for our drivers. We used to do the SIG capture out there. We've just disabled that. But what we do now is we take a picture of the front of the home, we take a picture of the product in the garage, and so we validate the number of pieces. And then we give the customer the receipt. So we've fortunately not had fraud-based problems or people claiming they didn't get stuff to any degree, because we've just kind of figured a different way of dealing with it. But it's not very tough to use tablets or cameras to validate that they got this many boxes from you. And that's what the shipment did. So that might be an idea that people find useful, because they're just as we're dealing with employees, we all run the full gamut of customers, to those that are oblivious that there's a pandemic and they should have some safety procedures, to those that are afraid to open their door, but they needed some things. So, just trying to come up with, and we're emailing in advance, especially when we're going in the home now, that they know that our people are temp checked, that we're masked, we're gloved. Again, just trying to reinforce them that we've taken all the reasonable safety precautions that we can in terms of entering their home. And that's for our employees as well, so they feel good, and we ask the customers to respect social distancing while we're in the home, and so they're not just over the guy's shoulder looking things. Let them do their work, and then you can come inspect it, and all that. So it's just everything's a little harder than it used to be from an operational standpoint, but if you think through it and communicate with it, once your employees see that you're concerned about them, they readily help with the ideas, and you gradually end up with what you deem to be best practices, and then you pick up ideas from other people, just like we're doing here today.
Well, I appreciate that, and these are terrific best practices that we're putting down here, which is really why we wanted to have you all here today. Riaz, let me ask you a question. Is it kind of a little different in this part of this conversation is, are you suggesting to those the retailers that you work with to get some sort of a waiver to the customer in advance, or something to explain these things in advance, or how, what are you guys suggesting from your consultative point of view?
So not necessarily a waiver, but as Carl mentioned, communication is key. So we have all kind of defaulted to this threshold, but threshold means different things to different people, and it's not necessarily an intuitive term to customers. So it's important that get communicated not only to the customer, but if you're working with a third party, it's important that you communicate that with the third party final mile carrier that you're using. So we had one client where we decided to go to the threshold. The way the 3PL initially defined it was what we thought of as curbside, which is not literally curbside, but at the front door, the porch, or the garage. We were expecting, or the client was expecting, in the front door, first room. And the clients might have been expecting something else. So the challenge is really communicating, getting those emails at the point of sale, communicating exactly what you mean and what to expect. If the client's not going to request a customer signature, that should be communicated up front, and those policies should be set in place. So I would emphasize the communication more than anything else.
Gotcha. And isn't it interesting? We just, we just literally made the case for what you just talked about, because everybody had a little bit of a different vocabulary and verbiage for that style of delivery. So there isn't even really a specific meaning the threshold. It's different from company to company, person to person. So you're right. I love that about the communication. I want to mention, by the way, for people who are just joining us, this is the HFA Weekly webinar. We're talking about warehouse and delivery in this post COVID-19 world. We've got Carl Nyberg joining us from Home Furniture, Charlie Workman from Riverstone Logistics, and Riaz Hussein from Profit Chain. And remember, this is being recorded, something you can share a little bit later on. I'm trying to, with all the questions we got that have come in, I'm trying to sort of take a bite of the elephant one piece at a time. Let's talk about your teams next year for a minute, and then we'll get to some of the things that play off of that. Social distancing is manageable in a store. In a truck cab, it's almost impossible. So Charlie, I'll start with you on this one. How have you guys really worked to ensure the health and safety of the crews in the trucks, even before we talk about when they get out and make a delivery?
Yeah, it's a great question. As you pointed out, by virtue of being in a cab together, they're not social distancing. So it really starts with entry into the building and understanding who's getting into the cab of the truck and representing your brand. So temp check stations aren't just for employees, they're also for contractors who are going to represent the brand. And we are executing those temp check stations or temp checks for our contract carrier partners and their drivers and helpers. So it starts there, understanding if there is symptoms or there are symptoms on your dock and addressing those and preventing those from continuing through the supply chain. Second is just encouraging and arming. So we encourage them to obviously take certain safety precautions, wash their hands regularly before and after coming into the building and going out on their routes. We arm them with disinfectant wipes within the cabs of their trucks and encourage them to wipe down after every delivery and make sure that they're addressing their hands, stripping off any latex gloves, discarding them, and really just making sure they're operating in a clean environment when they're in the cab. So the cab's obviously the biggest point of concern from a social distancing perspective, or it would seem. But I think it's fair to say that when the delivery teams enter the home, then the customer's expectations of what physical distancing looks like becomes a factor as well. And in that case, it's all about mask. It's all about asking for respectful behavior and asking the delivery teams to non-verbally put themselves in a position to keep distance, even in spite of customer insistence otherwise. And so that obviously is a tricky practice and something that we talk about every morning when we address our teams before letting them go out and make deliveries.
Well, and Carl, let me throw this part of this to you. Optics is important. So that truck pulls up, and if that customer is looking at the truck, even though the guys are in it, they might even ask them the question, how are you guys social distancing in the truck? So the optics are critically important. So would you kind of jump in here too on how that in-cab situation plays not only for the health and safety of the employee, but also maybe even a little bit beyond that?
Yeah, well, I think much as Charlie said, look, we all know you cannot get 6 feet apart or greater inside the cab. So it's reinforcing to that customer that our employees are daily temp checked. The other thing that we do is we're, normally in a normal time, we would, our guys usually have partners they work with most of the time, and but they might vary routes based on scheduling and have to juggle teams a little. Right now, we are greatly restricting that teams work together. So if we have an issue, it's isolated. But yeah, masks on and doing that. I can't say we've had an issue or question with customers being concerned that the guy, same thing, when you're carrying something heavy that might be smaller, you can't get, it's easy to be 6 feet apart on either end of a mattress, but not on smaller, heavy items. And I would say customers have been very understanding, and it's more, as you say, the optics, when, as we've all gone through this journey together, I think it's been easier to see at retail. We've all had to go to grocery stores. We've seen how Targets or Walmarts have had to adapt from no masks, no safety to that gradually ramping up to what we'd consider. And it became very obvious which retailers were working hard at being on top of it and which ones are doing little or nothing. And I think the same thing goes for, as we're talking, whether it's delivery, customer pickups, the behaviors in stores. When do you pass the eyeball test for the customer that says, they look like they're on top of this. The gloves were already on, or the shoe booties, or masks are up before they get to my door. They're not just on a neck, but they forgot to pull it up. Have you ingrained the behaviors that add confidence to consumers and employees? I think one thing you've heard from everybody is just this whole constant communication thing, whether it's via emails, the conversations, and just ingraining behavior and management reinforcing that there's a degree of discipline and that we're serious about this stuff. We had just a real quick thing, that when we were first opening, we had one salesperson who in a store just was not respecting social distancing, and he's a top producer, and we had to pull him into the office and say, listen, we've talked to you enough. It's been 2-3 days. You either are going to keep space or you're going to go home until this is over. All of a sudden it kind of clicked in that, we were going to operate differently. And I think you want to do that kindly and gently, but firmly, that things are different and we have to do things different. And ultimately, I think the majority of the employees appreciate that.
Well, I mean, and I'm not going to name names, but I will tell you, and I don't know about y'all's households, but when my wife and I have gone out, to venture out for something during this pandemic, if there's anybody that's not showing that care in a customer service environment, it's the biggest conversation when we get home. And that's not the kind of thing you want people talking about. Riaz, there's been a lot said in recent, the last few years with this final mile focus about the importance of customer service, skills, soft skills, et cetera, for those crews going out there. I'm hearing from the other guys, this fits right in with that, doesn't it? I mean, if they're not the biggest advocates of what you all are doing from a health and safety standpoint, then that's all going to kind of fall apart. Is this also really a customer service issue beyond the health and safety?
Absolutely. I mean, putting the customer at ease and making them feel comfortable that we care about their health and well-being, it's all part of the customer service. And that really starts and ends with those drivers. They're the final touch. So everything from the initial recruitment, selection, the interviewing, the onboarding, the training of those drivers, it's crucial. And if you have the right individuals, it's not difficult for them to carry forward the health precautions, the masks, the gloves. You tend to have issues with the ones that don't provide that level of service to begin with, right?
So in other words, this is work you should have been doing long before this happened, just making sure that you've got a crew out there that's representing you well. I mean, let's just state that that's the simple. Okay.
That is your brand.
We're believe it or not, almost halfway through here. We're rocking and rolling. It's great. I want to thank everybody for joining us here on the HFA webinar. We're talking about warehouse and delivery in this post-COVID environment. So now we're going to go deep to some of the real specific questions we've had. We're talking about this new kind of delivery. Okay, this one I just wrote down. All it said was gloves and grip. Obviously, if they're wearing gloves, and if that's in any way negatively impacting their ability to pick up, lift, and move things, how have you guys dealt with any of those concerns? I'm going to go the opposite direction this time. Riaz, let's start with you on that one. Have you had any outstanding issues relating to just the fact they've now got to wear gloves in that way?
I've not heard any issues with wearing, let's say, latex gloves. In fact, I would argue it's the opposite. It gives you a better grip in some cases. But I've not heard of any instances where it caused any kind of slippage or where you couldn't actually properly handle the merchandise.
Okay, Carl, what about you?
Yeah, same. Using the nitrile gloves that are, disposables. But I think if you're using really thin, what you might call food service gloves, that might be more of an issue. But no, I would say none. We're not dropping stuff and problems. And again, to emphasize what Riaz said, I think, if you had a good quality team for the most part previously, they're going to adapt pretty well, and many of them are on the safety spectrum because they're concerned. They know they're a frontline provider here, and they're concerned about their own safety. So they adapt pretty well, I'd say.
Okay, and Charlie, I'm hearing we need good quality gloves, not just easy throwaways, right?
Good quality gloves that are disposable are key. And yeah, I mean, I hate to be consensus here, but I think it speaks to the topic we're dealing with. Yeah, there are no issues that we've encountered with grip when it comes to latex gloves, or at least the ones we're providing.
Okay, here's the next question. You're gonna love the granular nature of some of these questions. I love this. So with mask and maybe some added items like that, sweat. We haven't had somebody asked about that. Is there a concern about your crews being overheated and how that can also play a role? Charlie, go ahead and you start on this one.
Yeah, well, I don't know how it's going to be in Illinois and Minnesota, but I'm betting it's going to be different in South Carolina and North Carolina. But no, yeah, it's the most common complaint that we get from our delivery teams about the masks that we've provided them and that they provided for themselves. The most common excuse for letting it down below their nose is just, hey, I just need some breathing room here. It's hot, it's humid, I can't breathe. I'm doing a physical job, and physical job requires me to have good airflow, and so yes, it is a common objection. So sweat was the specific question, but sweat's certainly a part of that, and just what a mask can do in a warm, hot, humid environment to an individual who's trying to care for a customer's home while delivering furniture.
And I guess it could also fog up glasses more, and if they're wearing anything along those lines too. I mean, that's part of it. So let me ask you this, I'll put you on the spot here. How do you respond to that? If somebody says, if you've got, because again, we're about best practices here. If somebody on a delivery team says, I got to lower this down because I'm not getting enough, breathing space here, how do you respond to that?
Well, so what we asked them to do is to step away from the delivery at that point in time. So actually came up this morning in one of our stands in Cleveland, but it was, it's okay to put the furniture down, to step outside, get some distance from the customer home, and lower your mask. The customer will understand with an easy explanation that, hey, I just need to step outside, catch my breath, and get some fresh air, and then get back to it. But it remains a requirement that your mask needs to be over your mouth and nose if you're engaged in a customer home or distribution center that you're going to interact with other people in. So we also, though, would say that we've found that the medical masks, the lighter weight blue masks, tend to allow folks to breathe a little bit better than some of the cloth alternatives that have been procured and or self-made. They tend to be much tougher to breathe in and keep the sweat really soaks into some of those materials. So the lighter weight medical masks are some of the more effective in allowing them to breathe. They're also
who knew you guys were all going to have to become mask experts? Carl, any questions or concerns you've had on that end as well when it comes to the fact of the heat and the fogging of glasses or goggles, things of that sort? Any concerns there?
Yeah, well, it's a real issue, so you have to work with them on it. But as Charlie said, I think you're getting a fair amount of consistency of some things here. It's what you can't do is allow things that are deemed to be safe practices to just go away because it's uncomfortable. You have to emphasize with the employee. We'll lighten up schedules if it gets to that point. We get humid up here too, just not for as long or as bad as Charlie deals with down in the southeast. And we're entering that season for us. Like today, it's a little brutal. So we're that means we got to receive at a little slower pace. People need a little more breaks. And as long as the management is engaged with them and talking, and we're just reinforcing the safety, it's all the best things. It's okay to, not in the presence of anybody, but pull down, get a breath of air, back up. That's a real thing. And, the most important thing, I think, besides that is social distancing space is really working hard that your processes and procedures in your DC and the two-man teams, as much as possible, they can stay apart as much as they can. The delivery teams have to work in proximate nature quite a bit, but there's plenty of times they can make sure they're apart. It's just reinforcing that behavior, that the more time you can spend apart is a good thing.
Okay, and these ended up being exceptionally good questions. Riaz, when you talked about the importance of communication, I really like what Charlie said too, is that, give the customer the expectation. If I'm having an issue and I need to step aside, instead of just doing that, why not say, listen, I hope it's okay. I'm just with this mask on. I really would like to get, a little more air. I mean, isn't this part of that whole communication aspect you're talking about? Just the customer's going to understand. Don't try to hide it and something like that. Would you agree with that, or how would you handle that with your clients?
So in a very similar way, right? It starts with, to me, it's more than just a comfort issue with the driver. It's a safety issue. If they're struggling to breathe and they're handling heavy merchandise, that's a safety issue to me. So it's about education. And it's kind of what Charlie and Carl pointed out. You don't need to take that break in the customer's home. That's the wrong time to do it. If you are feeling that way, step outside of the house, take the mask off, catch some fresh breath, and then go back in. But do it in an intelligent way. The other thing is we educate them and train them on taking breaks in between stops. So in between stops, find a safe spot far away from everyone, get some fresh air outside, observe the social distancing, and then go to the next stop. So it's training on making sure they build in those stops for the fresh air in between stops.
Also, I just want to do a little round robin here. Carl, are the delivery trucks all branded? Yours, are they all branded with yours, or are they separate?
Yeah, no, the majority, I would say we've got a few trucks that are not, but the overwhelming majority of our fleet is branded. And yeah, so obviously it starts with your exterior appearances, but we want our guys, wiping down their door handles, wiping down inside the cab. We bought. We all should have got into the sanitizer business before this started.
Tell me about it.
Amazing how much of that stuff you go through, but it goes back into the management. For us, our management team was told when we got back to work that productivity will take care of itself. We're not going to run at the normal pace. We'll get as close as we can, but that's not the pressure. Your job one is employee and customer safety. Job 1A is the management of all the supplies, the checklist, the temp charts, and that we're being on top of it, nothing slipping. We're looking things over, and if we're making sure and reinforcing any employee that didn't check in, we've got checkpoints at our DC and for the drivers and all DC workers and our corporate office in each store, and that's one of the first management activities of the day is we inbound and people are within the safe temp range, and then we sanitize constantly and work on reminding people for social distancing. And the DC, that's a bigger issue, is rethinking how you do certain processes where you can instead of when you prep trucks, instead of prepping in adjoining bays, you kind of leapfrog and you skip a bay. Okay, and then you go back and do that bay in the next bay. So there's ways, if you think about your operation, you can do things differently than you used to, and you can keep pace. But yeah, we're all having to be a little more flexible with people needing time to get some air, and it's going to be a little more difficult for the summer months. But I think we all need to stay committed to the safety procedures, because the last thing you want to do is not have good practices, good rules how you do things, and then you get a case and pretty soon your building shut down on you. And so it's a very real business thing for all of us, but it's the right thing for our employees. It's the right thing for customers. And there's some good opportunities, that we've found. One interesting thing is, when we're busy and you're growing, you kind of do things the way you've always done them. And now that we've had to rethink some things, pretty soon you find some opportunities to do it differently, and you find some savings. So you may have to spend more on safety supplies and a variety of things, but all of a sudden you were wasting time and labor in another fashion, and all of a sudden you've eliminated some steps to things. And so it's a good opportunity just to rethink how you do things.
Charlie, have you guys found some of that as well in what you've done? Have you seen that this isn't just a burden on the warehouse delivery process, but instead you found some great avenues for some innovation?
Yeah, that's a great point. Yes, I would say in many ways, the pandemic has really forced us to reinvent ourselves. I tell you that our throughput pieces per hour are up significantly over pre-pandemic levels, and that's even with the rebound that we've experienced. We're right now our in-store traffic is higher than it's I can't ever remember it being this high. We just delivered more product. Broad River Retail delivered more product last week than we ever have in 1 week. We were fortunate to have a good stock position to allow that to happen. The ramp up has been volatile because the need has been the need and demand has been there, but we were well prepared for it because, to stay open and allowing our customers to go on furlough and being committed to keep the operation going, we had to find new ways of moving product a little bit quicker and as well as safer through the building. And yeah, so we have absolutely reinvented ourselves in a number of ways that have allowed us to really quickly earn some fruit as we ramp back up here. So yeah.
And Riaz, let's talk a little bit more about that. So really and clearly, what we're hearing here is that warehouse operation, no matter if you've got a large DC or you've got the backside of your store has your ramp, et cetera. That's where this all begins, clearly, from what I'm hearing from the other guys.
Yes, absolutely. It starts with, like as I was mentioning before, all the precautions you take, the temperature checks, making sure there's regular cleaning, simple things like you want to make sure that scanners and lifts are absolutely cleaned every day, that the associates know that they're cleaned every day. And it kind of extends to making sure you're observing social distancing, as Carl pointed out, in the prep areas. All those kind of things build up to what you're mentioning.
Okay, appreciate that. I want to mention again to everybody, this webinar is being recorded, so we'll have it available at myhfa.org/COVID-19 a little bit later, and there's all kinds of other resources there. One of the things oh, and I'm hearing a little bit of an echo. Sorry about that. I scared myself. One of the things that I'm curious about is, okay, so we've taken all these precautions on the delivery side of things. Have you yet, and maybe it's too early, but I'd love to know your plans. So again, we can kind of glean some ideas here. What about returns? What about something doesn't work out? That's got to be a tough part. Riaz, I'll start with you on this one. How is that being handled or will be handled going forward in this situation?
Sure, that absolutely is an important challenge. And so what we're seeing done and what we're requesting third parties, and even if the drivers are in-house, is that they carry lots of shrink wrap with them, lots of wrapping. So when you're handling the returns, part of it is setting the expectations and the communication with the customers up front about what the expectations are. And the preference would be for the customers to try to wrap some of the merchandise if they can. Now, naturally, you're not going to alienate a customer by pushing that issue. So we want the delivery teams carrying lots of that plastic wrap to make sure any product that's returned or exchanged is well wrapped. There are some delivery services that are spraying down merchandise, but you can potentially damage the merchandise. So you need to be careful with that. For the most part, what I'm seeing in the industry is lots of plastic, lots of shrink wrapping, and then blanket wrapping that product and bringing it back in the building. And then you have to observe precautions in the returns area so that the people that inspect the merchandise and disposition where that merchandise goes, they need to make sure that they're wearing gloves, that they're wearing masks, and taking all those precautions throughout the whole process.
Okay, Charlie, what about y'all? And especially since you've said that you've had a pretty brisk last month or so. So what about the return side of it?
Yeah, so it's kind of a tale of two cities. There's unplanned returns, those are your day of refusals, and then there's planned returns, even exchanges, pickups. And then even amongst, aside from those, there's mattress haulaways. So we've had to address all three with some fervor in terms of how we're dealing with them. So I'll start with planned returns because we would identify planned returns as being the biggest safety risk for our delivery teams and our distribution center, bringing back product that's been in a customer home, not knowing the condition of the customer and their family. What do we do with that? Do we continue to offer easy exchanges and reselections? And we opted to greatly limit that option for our customers, based on and communicating with them that it was a safety precaution for the distribution center for our operation. Instead of, in lieu of the numbers of even exchanges that we are, what we would call planned returns that we would have been offering pre-COVID, really just over-indexing on price adjustments, gift card options, and really giving other alternatives to satisfy the customer, and complete the interaction. For those customers that it's an unavoidable scenario and we're going to pick up an even exchange, we're going to take something that's been in a customer's house for more than 24 hours, then we're going to handle it with care. It's what the latex gloves are for. We will wrap it, and we will ensure when it gets back to the distribution center that it is put in an area that is secure to our employees, and more often than not, those items will be disposed of, as opposed to continuing to try to put it back through the supply chain again. So
really, so you guys, so that you feel is a better precaution than trying to rehab it?
Well, define rehab. If you're talking about a couch, a piece of upholstery that's been in a customer's home for a week, and it's not leather, it's what does rehab look like? And are most of our shops outfitted with materials that we can definitely tell our customers and our retail teams, hey, don't worry about it. These even exchanges that come back that we rehab, we've got the materials necessary to be able to disinfect them, and we understand the disinfectant process enough to be able to tell customers that, hey, there's nothing wrong with this piece of product, this merchandise. We can't safely say that, so we're not experts in the disinfectant process. And it's better to be safe than sorry when it comes to certain products. Now, case goods is a different animal. If we're going to pick up an even exchange case good, we're going to treat that very differently, and we're going to put that back through the system.
Wow. Okay, that's a huge takeaway. I mean, I don't know that I anticipated that, but interesting. But you're right. You have to take this all into consideration, and what's the customer going to be comfortable with if they come in to buy something that's already been out. Carl, what about y'all? Have you had a lot of also some concerns when it comes to returns, or had to put the procedures into place?
Yeah, I think it's similar to what the other guys have already spoke to. For us, we are, when we have to do a return, of course, we're choosing to bag just because it's faster, and then using a little bit of shrink wrap for stuff, but a similar process, get it in. We use disinfectant upon return in the returns processing center for all upholstery, and we wipe down case goods. Case goods are easy to deal with. You can use a light, if you're using some sanitizer, that's lightweight spray stuff for wiping down, much as many of us have been doing to our door handles and all of the rails or whatever we've got in our stores that we're doing. We're using that stuff on case goods, and then we use a water-based disinfectant that you spray on upholstery, and we take care of that, and then it's a matter of just pushing it through the distribution center normally. So just a little enhanced handling and time to deal with that, but that's I wouldn't say that's been difficult, but it's certainly a concern point for your employees. Again, we've all rode this roller coaster of emotions for the past 2 to 3 months, and you hear something 1 month from our the CDC, World Health, all of them, and then 2 weeks later the rules seem to be different. That's probably been the biggest challenge, is just what's supposed to be safe is either not safe 2 weeks later, or what was was necessary now isn't necessary. So you just try to keep current, and we are sticking to what our best practices until we find out that it's completely unnecessary. So but yeah, that's probably been the biggest thing, is just making sure we're disinfecting.
Well, I mean, the best laid plans in the world, you never know how they're all going to work until you actually get them out in the workplace. And so this is a moving target. You guys are, new cases and different scenarios are coming up every day for you guys. It's a real puzzle. I think the one thing that I wanted to move us into is, So how are you handling, because this is a question that's come up many times. So we've talked a lot about, and your number one, obviously, starting concern are those employees, those team members, those delivery people in your warehouse and in delivery. How are you guys managing, or how have you prepared those teams to deal with different customer experiences? If a customer is absolutely not doing anything to distance or to wear anything, to where your employees might feel a little unsafe, et cetera. Charlie, how are you guys managing that, and how have you armed your people to deal with that delicate situation, clearly, because it's in that person's home, it's their domain, right?
Yeah, we I think Carl said it about 10 times, and Riaz has mentioned it about 10 times. But communication is everything here. Nothing can supplant it, and each situation is a little bit different. I wish it was as cookie cutter as, hey, if this, then that. We see all manner of behavior by the customers. We do have to deal with a lot of different individual situations that are nuanced, and so the first thing is the proactive communication, the every single day email communication with our motor carriers, our stand-up communication with our delivery teams and our customer pickup teams, really reinforcing that not all customers are going to act the way we want them to act or the way that we're asking you to act, and really just asking them to do their best to create nonverbal cues that they want distance, which is extremely important in preaching nonverbal cues. So back up, take a step or two back, let the customer see that you're seeking distance. And as far as customers that are insistent on not wearing a mask or on getting really close to delivery teams, we're really of a mindset that we're dealing with grown-ups that are concerned for their own families and their own safety, and we ask them if they feel uncomfortable enough around a customer to politely step out of the situation, ask for a minute without giving any additional details. It's not necessary. Step outside and to contact the appropriate supervisor and let them know what's going on. And if you feel that it is a risk to your safety, then we will handle accordingly. We've had very few of those instances, though, and that's it's important to say they have happened. But by and large, we found customers to be on the same wavelength as us from a social distancing perspective.
But you do have to prepare for it. I mean, even if it's 2% of the cases, the point of the matter is you don't want your employees, and Riaz will throw to you, you don't want the employees to be uncomfortable, because that puts them in a terrible situation, caught in the middle, right? So you want to make sure that they know how to handle a situation that might not be comfortable for them.
That's exactly right. I mean, it's what Charlie mentioned. It's setting that expectation through communication with the customer at the point of sale that we will be observing social distancing, we will be wearing masks, those kind of things. So you set the expectation with the customer before you're in the home that is the expectation of the driving team. And then educating them on, if the customer is not complying with masks and social distancing, to politely but professionally ask for that social distancing. And if that doesn't work, and it doesn't work, the vast majority of customers get it. They understand these difficult jobs. They don't want these driving teams to feel any more uncomfortable than they already are. So the vast majority will be very respectful for that. For the one-off situations where it's not going well, again, it's training them to step out of that situation, to state the corporate policy so that it's not a personal thing. And if that doesn't work, step out of the situation.
Okay, and I mean, and Carl, we all know this is a very small percentage, but still, one of the many things, as you said early on in this conversation, that you just have to plan for just about every potential scenario. I assume this is one of them, right?
Yeah, this was very much one of the conversation points, and what we've tried to do is not only arm them with the behaviors, but the words that help us diffuse one of these situations if we have it. And we absolutely gave our delivery teams the discretion to step away, as the other guys have mentioned, call in, explain what's going on, and we'll have one of a delivery supervisor call the customer and let them know that, hey, for us to continue, we need to do things a little differently here. And, you know, if today's a good day, we'd love to finish. If not, we'll do that. But, you know, and our people, and it starts, Riaz has brought it up. I think, you know, what's the communication, not just for our safety, but it's for the customer's safety. And, you know, this is it's been exceptionally rare, maybe a few, but it's customers want to get the goods and they want to be safe, and that, and right in our initial email from them, you know, we'll reschedule their delivery if they or anybody else in their home has been sick within the last, you know, 48 hours kind of thing, 72 hours, you know, just, it's no problem, but we're not coming today then. And so our guys, if they come to a house and somebody's obviously sick, we back out. Today's not a day for delivery. And it's been, I'd have to say, you know, on this particular issue, I've been exceptionally pleased with the responsiveness of our customers, and very happy with our professionalism of our teams. They want to complete stops. They're not looking for excuses not to deliver things today. And I think arming them with the idea that they're not forced to do something that they feel is unsafe is of great comfort to your employees. And
you said at the beginning, where all these things are in place, but it's also trying to mitigate the urge to go back to normal, which is natural when we've all been cooped up. Gentlemen, we've got just a couple more minutes left. You know, first of all, a number of phenomenal takeaways today. Some of them very granular, some of them a little more more of an overview. But I want to ask one final thing here. And by the way, you're seeing here that we've got our myhfa.org/COVID-19, where you can find all these resources, including a recording of this. Also, if you want to continue the conversation, we have the HFA Retailer to Retailer Facebook group. But gentlemen, besides communication, I understand that communication, hearing you all loud and clear, number one on every aspect of this is the number one thing. Each of you, other than the communication piece, what would you say is the key? What do you think is maybe the number two on the list of the best practices now in this environment? Riaz, I'll start with you.
I think it's important for everyone to realize that it's okay to take all the precautions, the safety precautions, to do the right things, and still be profitable. There are ways to maintain that profitability and maximize return where you can get it. So I'll give you an example. In delivery, with a lot of retailers seeing a conversion from white glove to threshold, you're going to get more stops on those trucks. Not necessarily because of space, because you're going to limit the time, you know, at the home. Instead of 30 to 40 minutes for an assembly, you can do it in 5 to 8 minutes. So take those opportunities to maximize your cash flow, increase your profits. You then have those discretionary funds to do all the right things, let's say in the distribution center. So it's important for everyone to realize you can do the right thing and still be very profitable. That would be my parting words.
Love that. Charlie, what about you?
Yeah, along the same lines, there's a lot of silver lining here. There are efficiencies that we've gained that we probably would not have gained quite some time later without the pandemic having hit. There are services that we're going to be offering our customers and continuing to offer our customers that can increase efficiencies on the back end of the business and will increase them. We need to embrace the prospect that this is something that can propel us to very innovative ideas. But also, and I'll say this, it's funny, we talk about social distancing so much, and that term is part of our culture now. But truly, as an organization, I don't think Broad River Retail, our leadership team, my business partners, have ever felt closer to the peer network that is around us. I mean, aside from being partnered with the biggest, baddest furniture company in the world, and Ashley, our relationships with Ashley, our relationship with other Ashley Home Store licensees and furniture retailers, consultants, our community has never been stronger and more present in our everyday life. And part of the silver lining is just when things happen that we don't expect or that are bad, leaning into community and establishing bridges and relationships at this time, and really having free-flowing ideas and a willingness to help each other out and see each other through it is what stands out for me during this time. It stands out to our company, and I think it's going to have changed our company for forever for the better. So
And I can tell you that's what's happened at the Home Furnishings Association. Is it's given us the ability to really stop and say, this is what an association is supposed to be. We're supposed to be supporting and advocating and things of that sort. So you're right, we've used that. And by the way, I've quoted this many times, but when Keith Koenig was on one of our webinars, he told his team not to waste a good crisis. And he's not talking about a crisis being good, but he's just basically saying when things like this occur, you can either be buried by it, or you can look at the great opportunities and move forward in a more effective way. And I'm hearing that from you too as well. So Carl, you get to kind of put a bow on this one. Besides the communication, what you've heard, what did you say?
Sure. Yeah, well, I agree entirely with what both guys have talked about. For us, I'll just give you a quick on deliveries. You know, a normal delivery truck for us, because we've don't have any natural barriers, so we're delivering in a 360-degree circle around the metropolitan market here, and you know, go out quite a ways because our community is very suburban. We normally get 12 to 14 delivery stops on a truck. If it's a garage dropped truck or one with that, we are averaging 22 stops. I think I've heard as high as 28 stops, so that kind of validates exactly what Riaz is talking about. There's some ways you can do things differently. The whole thing about community, we've got a good network of retail friends that we communicate with, and I'll tell you what, it's when we were at the darkest days and we were all closed and not sure when we were opening, and you were planning for getting opening, that sense of community and just sharing ideas with each other, and you know, building on your own thoughts, but then taking their practices and building it, and we all helped each other get smarter and better. And so the last thing I would add is, I think this is a great time for management to even be more present and build stronger, deeper relationships with your employees, because you know, this is a very emotional time for everybody, and I think they need to know that we've thought things through. We're concerned about them, all of the things we've talked about this past hour, but it's really a time to be present and in front and regularly communicating with those frontline people, maybe more than we've all ever done. And just, you know, that we're all in this fight, and hey, we don't have all of the answers, but we're concerned about you, and we're working on the most important things. And I just think we're going to all be a better company out of this. And, you know, we'll look forward to the day when things get back to what used to be normal. But right now we've got a new normal, so we're going to embrace it, and we're going to get smarter and better because of it.
Well, and the way people are getting smarter and better, as you said, is by sharing ideas. And gentlemen, that's what you did today on this subject, which I can't thank you enough for doing that. I want to thank Riaz Hussein, Charlie Workman, and Carl Nyberg for joining us once again. You can, of course, suggest that people listen to this webinar. It'll be on myhfa.org/COVID-19. I'm Mark Schumacher. Until next time, we'll see you. Take care and stay well.